right, the anti-regulatory spirit of the Trump administration is spreading throughout the government. Now, the FCC is looking to kill Obama-era net neutrality rules that call for more regulation over internet providers like AT&T and Comcast. Critics say rolling back these restrictions and regulations would actually allow broadband companies to have more control over internet traffic. But my next guest, he says, let the free market decide. Joining me right now is FCC Chairman Ajit Pai. Good to have you back on the show, Ajit.
Hey, nice to talk to you again.
So you want to roll back these regulations. Tell me what that's actually going to look like for consumers of internet-based products and how soon you actually think it can happen.
Well, I think that repeal of these particular regulations will be good for consumers for a number of different reasons. First and foremost, it will lead to more investment in infrastructure by the companies that build the nuts and bolts of the internet. Secondly, it will lead to more competition. What we've heard is that some of the smaller companies that were looking to build these networks have either held back on investments or stopped investing altogether because of these regulations. And third, we want to have that light touch regulatory approach that started in the Clinton administration that allows all kinds of companies, the Googles, the Netflixes, the Facebooks of the world, to grow and thrive. And that's exactly what we want to have, that we had in the first 20 years of the internet. And we want to have that again in order to benefit consumers in terms of online innovation in the years to come.
What do you say to consumers that are worried that they're going to have to pay more to, say, watch a show on Netflix?
To the contrary, we didn't see any evidence of that in the 20 years starting in the Clinton administration up to 2015 when the FCC imposed these heavy-handed regulations. And one of the things we want to do going forward is to make sure that there's more competition. And the way to do that is to inspire more investment by more companies looking to build those networks. That, I think, is the best way to ensure price competition.
You know, it's a little confusing, and my gosh, the minute you say the words net neutrality, I think people brace themselves. It's a little confusing, but the thinking here, right, is that you want some kind of fast lane for the internet connection. And right now, companies can't buy that fast lane. They can't pay a toll. There's no way they can get a faster connection. They're slowed down by the slow lane because they're all kind of merged together. How would that shift? How would that change?
Well, the core question is, who do you want to control how the internet operates? If you want it to be bureaucrats and lawyers in Washington, then you adopt heavy-handed rules that were inspired to regulate the Ma Bell monopoly in the 1930s. But if you want a more market-oriented approach, the approach that produced the internet economy that's the envy of the world, then you want light-touch regulation. You want the market to make those decisions and for the government to step in if there's a particular problem. That's the approach we had for 20 years, starting under a Democratic administration.
It's interesting you point that out, right? In other words, it doesn't need to be political here. You want to do what's best to create the best industry.
Absolutely. I mean, President Clinton's FCC chair, a number of Democratic senators and representatives in the 1990s, they got it exactly right when they said, we don't want to preemptively regulate every single company in the United States as if it were Ma Bell, because they're not. And so that's what we want to return to, is that light touch approach that's more market-oriented.
How soon?
That's where we're going to be adopting, hopefully, the notice of proposed rulemaking on May 18th of this year. And then after that, we'll have about a couple of months of comments for the public to be able to have their input. And then at some point thereafter, the FCC will take a look and make the appropriate decision.
So, pretty soon. Let me turn to some additional regulations that you've been working to unravel right now, specifically when it comes to how many TV stations one business can own. Now, you've made the point to me before that, you know, some of these rules governing television ownership, they're pretty outdated, especially when so many are getting their news online right now. But let me ask you whether there will be any FCC issues with the sale of Tribune Media.
Well, so we haven't been presented with any papers yet with respect to any particular deal, so I can't comment on how the FCC would evaluate it. But generally speaking, I've consistently said that we need to take a realistic view of what the video marketplace is like. And you take a look at all the competitors in that space and try to figure out the market structure in order to decide whether or not a particular deal should go forward or whether our regulations need to be adjusted to match the realities of the modern market.
Well, and I should point out that we've been hearing reports that possibly Sinclair and possibly our parent company, 21st Century Fox, might be bidders. In your view, I mean, would those deals pass? You had restrictions previously in place where people could not have more than 39% market share of these TV stations.
Again, I can't comment on the merits of any particular deal, but what I can tell you is that the FCC, this FCC, is committed to having rules that match the realities of the modern marketplace and to ensuring that we have a competitive media market going forward.
So does that mean more mergers?
It really depends on the particular merger. I can't opine in the absence of particular papers that are in front of us.
But it's easier, right? It will be theoretically easier for companies to join up now that they don't have these restrictions that regulated them as heavily.
Well, I do think that the FCC right now is committed to making sure that we take into account all factors of competition that go into the marketplace. And so if previously the FCC said, you know, we don't need to worry about the impact of the internet, for instance, on news consumption, I mean, I think everyone can agree in 2017 that that's an outdated view of the marketplace. And so we want to make sure we have a forward-looking view of how things go.
Ajit, good to see you. Things are changing. Competition's good. We'll see you again soon, I hope. Thanks.
I hope so.